All right. This is the Warming Center logo here. Yeah, it's interesting because it looks like here, I think it looks like the state flag of New Mexico, maybe. But as you begin to draw the quadrants of the logo, we start seeing that it looks like maybe the four directions, a universal symbol of First Nations, or a religious symbol icon, of course, a religious cross, or Red Cross, or a medical alert symbol, something like that. We really like all that. But of course, it brings together these four quadrants, create this circle in these four entrances here. And we really like that. Protecting here what is symbolically the person we're trying to serve. Warming Center had been four elements, just a way to describe it. Volunteers, I'll pretend to write, you pretend to read. Volunteers and supporters, that's you. Santa Cruz, our beloved Santa Cruz. The building, the most difficult element to achieve is a facility, especially in these economic times. We were using churches. Now we've had our own facility. It's been a miraculous benefit. Also, material elements. And that could be the floor pads, blankets, also everything from socks to Q-tips, jackets, the 100 things that we hand out. And then the program, Warming Center program, right? The administrative elements, the activation protocol, all the protocols. And all these things coming together. Of course, there are probably other elements, but this is just to minimize it. All to protect, and it's theoretical. It's just really just an analog to logo, but to really just describing that everything is about the needs of the people outside. And we've been at 38 degrees as a temperature threshold. We call it an activation threshold, with specifically the online, it's a website, Weather Underground, the downtown Santa Cruz. So your phone, iPhone or whatever, might have Santa Cruz and a temperature, but that's usually not based on a microclimate. I mean, imagine the microclimates all over the city. And also when it says Santa Cruz, they mean Santa Cruz County. And often a lot of weather forecasts are coming from the Watsonville Airport, which is known to be 5 to 10 degrees colder than the downtown core in Santa Cruz, or the university, or I think the county building, or the wharf of all places. So the interesting thing about the algorithm that we use, Weather Underground, the downtown Santa Cruz website, is that it focuses on microclimates. It's actually kind of an open source weather service where the individual or different companies or nonprofits or schools generally can buy a $350 weather system, and it feeds information to the central. It's almost like an AI network that produces forecasts, and it's really fascinating. But ours is on the downtown location, which is above the Cruz IO building, the former Sentinel building. I think that's on Church and Center Street, or Cedar Street. Anyway, so 38 degrees. And this is an email. My name is Brent Adams. I direct the Warming Center. I think I might have said that at the beginning here. And this is I need to write an email to you, community of Santa Cruz supporters and volunteers, but anybody, about what's been going on here. And really what I'm having a hard time writing that email because a lot's going on here. I'm going through something right now. And you'll see maybe a little bit of what that is. This email and the video is really to describe that I'm changing the temperature threshold from 38 to 36 degrees. And that is a big deal. We started years ago at 32. We want to go to 40. Most winter nights are forecasted to be about 40 degrees in Santa Cruz, 40 to 45. We activated a few nights ago with a forecast of 38 degrees. Last night was 37. Warming Center, as it was the other night that we opened, was unsustainable. I feel like I'm going to burp here. And that's because we had so few volunteers showing up. And that's been a trend over the few years. And with our own facility, we used to do 25 plus volunteers a single night. If I'm open four nights in a row, that's essentially 100 volunteer positions. We do 3-hour bite-sized shifts to really protect the warming center. You know, when we were designing the warming center program many years ago, I researched warming centers all over the country and discovered that most warming centers, and that's a pop-up. It's not an emergency winter shelter like you need in a community that's open every single night, that then you can acquire funding, and you have a static, consistent building and paid staff, right? A warming center is pop-up, so you can't really have paid staff because it's intermittent. You can't keep them on call in that way. So it's reliant upon volunteers. That's why church organizations have been very beneficial. But, you know, first Red Cross, United Way, counties and cities and religious organizations all over the country, Rotary clubs, things like that will host and run a warming center. A lot of them already have their buildings, and then they have their membership, and then they just open in that way. But what happens historically is by this Christmas holiday months, they burn out. They start and they have very strongly, but by January, February, they're not existent. And there's a lot of news stories that describe that. And so that's why we have the 3-hour volunteer shift. You show up, it's easy, you're not going to get burned out. Maybe even if you show up 3 or 4 nights in a row at 3 hours, it's something you can manage. And then if you don't show up, it's not such a huge impact. But the other night, I had no overnight volunteers between 10 and 5:30, and that's when we have lots of people streaming in. There's a lot to be said about homelessness right now. It's a nocturnal population. The people in the woods are up. There's a lot of fentanyl use, a lot of methamphetamine use. People are moving about, and so people, knowing the warming center is here, we have an open door. People can come and go, and that's what you want, because we want people to come and take the chill off. If they want to return outside, that's fine. Let's just get them what they need. 40 to 45 people came in drenched. We got them fresh clothes. That's even shoes, socks, complete new outfit. And then 2 clean blankets, a clean floor pad, a very safe space, soup served all night, hot chicken soup, decaf coffee. And people were out. But in the breezeway, where we have space heaters, people come in, take the chill off, and they hang out. A lot of them are high. A lot of them have mental health issues. They're not prone to go lay down in a grid-like thing. So having one person in that space was very difficult. We have a different philosophy than Housing Matters does. They have a fence around them. It's a lockdown. I'm not going to say any of those negative terms, but they do have a guardhouse out front. Sometimes you'll find 3 guards on duty and 2 or more staff people on the campus with clipboards and radios. And it's a big deal, right? For the amount of services that they provide, they have a really achieving security system there. Well, we have none. Our philosophy is different. Let's just talk about it really quickly. Here's homelessness, here's housing. We'll talk about housing first as a national paradigm, or a national housing farce, as I like to call it. I know I'm snarky, which might be one of the reasons we're having such a difficult time as a nonprofit, or me as an administrator. But homelessness is here. The idea that a few people are going to make it over this nearly impossible hurdle called housing, and very few make it. Almost all the money is spent on this pathway to nearly non-existent housing, and at least a third to a half fall back to the street. We know that. The grand jury report proved it, and we know dozens of people who had housing and we have all these people, hundreds with housing vouchers, waiting for this opportunity, and many of them will not be able to maintain it. But that's what everyone loves, the idea. Oh, so we've got Housing Now at Homeless Services Center, funded millions of dollars. To housing navigators to get people into nearly non-existent housing. And it's not just Santa Cruz, it's on the West Coast, and all of these West Coast states, and nearly every state in the country. Housing First is unsuccessful. If we're successful, you would be hearing about it. Trust me. And I did go visit a few of those cities and states, like Salt Lake City, Sacramento, to find out that if their Housing First program did work as a dismal failure. I've been to Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Redding, Fresno. I did the entire Western Seaboard, LA. It's failure everywhere you go. So let me get back on track here. So what we want to do is raise the floor experience up to something clean, safe, and dignifying for every single person outside. Shelter of some kind. That's a big conversation, right? Storage, laundry, showers, food program, everything you need. People say providing housing is way cheaper than to keep somebody outside. But if you're not housing anybody hardly, then this is way cheaper actually to provide. Hospital costs go down. Also, let's talk about the mega camps. Proposition 47, Prop 47, fentanyl. We now have a situation where the city allows, because of the pandemic, because of Martin versus Boise, and it's all unique conversation, that they've allowed large camps to proliferate. They become impacted. They're hosted by the city on city property. Then they become like focuses on substance misuse, addiction, fentanyl. It's easier to get than a can of beer or a cigarette. So pretty much, if that's what your core culture is doing, then that's what everyone starts doing. It's what's happening in your encampment, and it's dealer oriented. So anyway, and then there's no felonies because of Prop 47. So people get a slap on the wrist. They're expected to go to a court appearance, which they mostly don't go to. Then they get a bench warrant. Now everybody is out there with a warrant, which criminalizes everybody. Now they're laying low. When they see a cop, they have to hide to get what they need. It's a crime production factory hosted by the city, and every city unfortunately has been mired with this. But over here, and then we have feel good programs like Downtown Streets Team, which takes a lot of our community money and produces a minuscule effect on homelessness as it exists. Homeless Garden Project, very feel good, has a minuscule effect on the effect of homelessness outside. Food Not Bombs. Why is a food program such at war with the city and the police department? That's not what we need. So there's a lot to be said about these mega camps. Should they be clear? What happens to people? Should we defend them? So what that does on the Santa Cruz mindset of we're progressive liberals, right? Thought to be. What is progressive? That's a whole nother conversation. We're liberal-esque. But all of this distortion creates cognitive dissonance. We turn away from it. Our compassion is now turned away from the people suffering in our community, and that has a terrible psychological effect on us as Santa Cruz residents. Now we are not caring for ourselves. We're not caring for the people suffering outside. And that has a dismal effect on a small nonprofit like ours, which has me, where's my eraser? I can't find my eraser here. Has me, unfortunately, reducing the temperature. Volunteers are off. Donations are off, way down. And that could be, post-pandemic. It could be, here we are post-Me Too, Black Lives Matter, no DAPL, pandemic, transgender, personal pronouns, a lot of things, all the large buildings in Santa Cruz, the Greenway, the elections in Santa Cruz have a dismal effect and just have been pulling us apart. Everyone on city council now is supported by Santa Cruz Together. That is patently not a compassionate organization. If they focus on anything, it's like close the camps. Let's pretend we're getting people in housing, and we don't support Band-Aid programs like Warming Center. We are in trouble, Santa Cruz, and you'll see me. This is what I'm kind of doing, is having to close programs. I've closed the storage, laundry, showers. The women's shelter is closed. What's become of the Santa Cruz Coalition on Homelessness? It's been co-opted by other pseudo programs. Housing Matters wants to have a listening and a march. The people perpetrating, the biggest farce going. We're in trouble around homelessness, and I'm kind of slowly getting out. And that's what you're seeing happening. Will Warming Center exist next year? It's not guaranteed. I love you, Santa Cruz. I've came from you. I flirted with homelessness. I saw the need on the street. I came from protest to service organization to focusing on needs. Scalable. We never turn anyone away for service. All these other programs, They need your kick people out. Kick people out. So many people are not allowed in Housing Matters. It doesn't make any sense. They get free property from the city, and a huge budget is paid for by the city, and yet they constantly want more of your money for what? They're way over. They have surplus of their budget. So, and we are in trouble here. Warming Center Program. Brent Adams. Thank you. I love you.